Hi, everybody. Welcome to Creating Balance with Jan and Lori. And we have a special guest here today. And I'm going to actually let Jan introduce her.
Yes, we have a special guest for sure. First of all, I'm going to state that Lori's doing this recording from the Boston area. I'm in the western suburbs of Chicago, and our special guest, Janet, is in the south suburbs of Chicago. And Janet is here to talk about her journey with two diagnoses of ovarian cancer, and she is here to talk to us, and she's going to tell us um, how the steps of what she's taken, what she experienced, how she dealt with it, and how she can just be so lively and live a normal life today. So I met Janet a while ago briefly, but we really connected 2 years ago. I had my very first women's weekend retreat, healing retreat, and Janet came with her sister, and she came because of her diagnosis with ovarian cancer. And I'll let Janet explain why she showed up, what she was hoping to get out of that retreat, and just tell a little bit about her this whole big journey for the past couple of years. So Janet, we're going to give it to you and let you take it away.
All righty. So I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer in September of 2017, and I'd been feeling poorly for a year. Um, Ironically, at the same time, I was training for a 500-mile bike ride across Missouri, and the week before my diagnosis, I had just put down my final down payment for the bike ride. So I'd been training the whole time, even though I've been feeling lousy and kind of just getting used to feeling lousy. So I'd had a lump removed from my groin that everybody thought it's just an infection. I had it removed on a Tuesday. Friday, I got a call from the surgeon saying it's malignant ovarian cancer. I was at my office at work in Chicago, and he said, I have set up an appointment with you for the top gynecological oncologist at Northwestern for 2 o'clock that Friday. I go see the oncologist. Um, they look me over, they look at my past CAT scans, which everyone was like, they're so vague, we don't know what the CAT scan means. And he comes in and he says, you have stage 4 ovarian cancer. He says, you have a large tumor sitting on your rectum, you have a large tumor hanging off your colon, and you have two very large tumors on each of your ovaries, one large tumor on each of your ovaries. And he said, and we should remove these right away. So that was a Friday. The following Thursday, I had the surgery. And going into the surgery, if they open you up and decide we really can't do anything, they pretty much close you up right away, and you just start chemotherapy and radiation because they want to try to kill as much, because there's so much cancer they can't get on top of it. So you really want them to stay in there a long time because that means they're taking the cancer out. And it ended up being just a 7-hour surgery. They remove all the tumors. Um, uh, and and when I got the diagnosis, I, I never believed it was me. I always believed they'd made a mistake. Um, it was heartbreaking. Uh, I have two adult daughters, and I put on a face. I put on a face for months and months that I've got this. I've got this. And looking back, I would say I was a ghost. I was just going through these motions of healing, recovering from the surgery, all the stuff they tell me to do. 4 weeks after surgery, I started chemotherapy, and chemotherapy was once a week for 18 weeks. And I would take the train into the city and go to chemotherapy and take the train home. And it was a very, very lonely business. And if you've ever had chemotherapy or gone to see somebody, you're in these pods of a handful of women, and we're all being infused. I didn't speak to anybody because they all had cancer and I didn't. and and I just stayed in my shell. And I recall and there are times I broke down, but always by myself. And one day during treatment, the woman across from me, and a woman in her mid 80s, she was getting a potassium infusion, and they were talking with her, the nurses, that chemotherapy wasn't working for her anymore. The cancer, the ovarian cancer, was was just growing, and there was nothing they can do. And I'm listening to this, and I just start to sob, and I'm just sobbing and sobbing into the blanket that's on my lap. And the nurses don't know what to do with me because I'm not the friendliest person, because I've, got my walls up. And when I pick my head up, the blanket is filled with all the hair that I've been losing constantly. So
Oh
there's all this
no.
hair in the blanket, which then I'm just sobbing even more. And somebody comes over and says, "Do you need a social worker?" And I said, I could use a Kleenex. And finally got myself together, but um, put the face back on and just kept going and going. My last chemotherapy was in January of 2018. Took vacation, did all sorts of stuff, and then I saw this retreat with Jan, and I went, and I was, everybody's like, "How are you?" "I'm fine. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm still blocking everything." And so I recall at the retreat, there were a couple of things. One was the vibration bowls. One was the energy work. One was the meditation and just the conversation. And they really, I went home and I felt better. I felt lighter, and like I I could, like, everything seemed greener. It was in September, I recall, or October, and Jan reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to give you free energy work to work with you with your diagnosis." And honestly, my first thought was like, no, I don't want to drive to your studio. I don't want to do this. But I didn't say no, because I think you sent it in an email. I was like, "Oh, I'm just going to think about it." And I'm like, you know what?
I
This is,
didn't hear from you for a while.
I was like, this is a gift. I'm going to go try the gift. So I go and see Jan, and we're talking, and she does the energy work on me, and she goes, "You've got good energy flow until you get to your knees, and you don't have energy flow." I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. um, but then it occurred, I remember, is that I've had chronic shin pain for years. My shins ached all the time.
Right, I remember that
Yeah,
now.
it was just so, I was so used to it, I never thought anything about it. And so I mentioned it to Jan, and she goes, "Well, we'll start working on it." So that's what we tapped is, I love and accept myself even with this shin pain. And I'm following Jan's message, and the things that are coming out are just the deep, deep sorrow of the cancer, and the loneliness. My mom, who was an oncology nurse, had passed away a couple years earlier. And she and I had a good and a bad relationship, but still, missing your mom. And I remember, and Jan and I worked every 2 weeks. I was at her studio, um, and sometimes I'm weeping, I'm just sobbing, and things are coming out, from the cancer to one of my daughters had been molested as a child, to my relationship with my parents, my relationship with my siblings, and just tapping all this stuff out. And I would leave her office, and I'd go sit in my car and like be gasping for breath. I'd have to go home. I'd drink a ton of water and take a nap. It was exhausting. And and then, I start to feel better, that that the ghost that I've been pretending, this face that I've been having on, is slipping. So when people ask me how I am, I'm like, "You know how I really am?" And I would tell them how I really am. And sometimes people then stopped asking. And then also, relationships that weren't healthy for me, I got rid of those relationships. One of those was with my sister. And I have two sisters, and my older sister, and she and we had this old relationship. I'm just as much to blame for the issues that we've had, and that relationship altered significantly. Unfortunately, in April of 2019, I had a reoccurrence and I had my spleen removed. And Jan had helped me with there was a tumor in my spleen that they couldn't remove. They couldn't remove the tumor; they had to take the whole spleen. But Jan had helped me with some tapping beforehand, and then also just some work to well, before they put me under, certain energy holds to have. And my daughter was with me before they put me under, and one was holding a different energy point, and so she's holding them, and the nurse comes in and she's like, everything okay? And my daughter's like, we're just doing this weird stuff because it makes her feel better. And
That's really all that's important.
right, exactly. So 4 weeks after surgery, I was hiking in the redwood forest. My recovery was tremendous. And removing the splenectomy, I mean, it's considered a pretty bloody surgery. It's not an easy one. So my recovery was so good. And then when I got back from vacation, I started chemotherapy again, and then 6 months of chemotherapy. Um, and, I kind of go in and out with Jan. Sometimes it's hard to do things. And Jan and I, we were tapping through a Zoom meeting during the beginning of the COVID. And I remember tapping with her, and all I'm thinking is, I just want to hang up this phone call. Just literally shut up. And what comes out are the things that I've been stifling down, things about work and that. And it's funny because sometimes they're little things, the little things that just pop up and you're like, really? But like it comes out and all of a sudden you're like, okay, let me take a look at this and deal with it. And it always makes me laugh because Jan's like, I've been waiting for you to bring it out. I saw it coming. And of course, I'm in my head, I'm like, just shut up. And I mean that with love, Jan.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I want to ask you a question, and I want you to just briefly talk about this, because prior to the surgery on your spleen, having the spleen removed, because we went quite a while without connecting, and I would always just wait for you to reach out, and then if you didn't reach out, I'd have to go after you, and just when I got that ping in my heart saying, I think I need to reach out to Janet. But when we had the work we had done on your liver prior to that surgery, and because they originally thought they were going to have to take a big chunk of your liver out too.
Correct.
So we were focusing on the liver. We were doing tapping, we were doing energy medicine, we were doing all types of love and help for the liver too. And so when I got the email, like you were in recovery and your daughter emailed me immediately, and tell them what the surgeon told you when you woke up.
So they had gone into, you're right, to remove the spleen and a chunk of the liver. And when he got in, he couldn't find a tumor in the liver. And he's poking around and lifting and moving. And he has another oncologist come in because the CAT scan clearly showed that the blood work with the liver was off. They couldn't find anything, and which I'm sure he was disappointed because you're going in and you've told your patient this is what's going to happen, and I wake up and the liver was intact, it was fine, there was nothing wrong with it. They couldn't explain where that went, and the CAT scan clearly showed the two tumors. And I do agree. I don't know why I couldn't energy the spleen one away, but the liver one I definitely felt, and thank you for reminding me. I definitely felt is it weird to say we energized it away?
Yeah, and there's no guarantee. I mean, there's no proof of that.
Right, there's no proof of that at all. But I mean, I'm looking at and I remember when I went to see him after the CAT scan, and for ovarian cancer, they do a blood test called CA-125, and my numbers had spiked. So they knew something was going on. They knew the cancer was back. And I'm clearly looking at the CAT scan, as is he. And there's no doubt in his mind, and you can see it. And so and later on, and just this past year, we have done more energy work on my liver, which seems to be a problem child, but it's been very effective. So I don't know if the liver regenerates. So I don't know if the spleen does, but I know the liver does, because you can take a part of it and it will grow back. So so is it regenerating? I want to believe that completely. Actually, I do believe that completely, because the energy work we've done, because now I'm on a PARP inhibitor, which stops the reproduction of the cancer cells. I've been on it for 8 months, and they say I'll be on it for 2 years. And of course, it has a bunch of side effects, one of which is it affects your liver significantly. So my liver count has been off the bilirubin. And I reached out to Jan in probably March and said, hey, by the way, I haven't spoken to you for a while, but can you fix my liver? And so she sent me some links for me to look at. We had some Zoom calls with tapping, and the liver count, which was at 1.9, and they don't like to see anything over 2. The normal count is 1 and below. They don't like anything over 2.5. I was at 1.9, and we start tapping, I start massaging, I start doing energy work. I go back, it's dropped to 1.6. Then the following month I went back, it dropped to 1.3. So then I got a little cocky, and instead of doing that deep soul liver work that I was doing, that I'm like, I'm working on this. I was like, I just put it part of like an exercise routine. Okay, I'm just going to tap here. Okay, did that, check. And then also one of my daughters was moving out, which was very, very stressful. And so I had all this stuff going on, and I'm speaking to Jan at one of our sessions, and she said, how's your liver count? She goes, don't tell me. It went up, didn't it? And I'm like, it did. So
You know
it's
what, Janet? We're going to stop you right here,
Yep.
because
So,
we're going to talk to you more. And Lori, tell her what's going to happen.
well,
I throw you on the spot there, huh?
no, it's all set. No,
Yeah,
so we're gonna
yourself.
stop here for part 1, and when we come back, we're gonna learn more about Janet's story, and we're gonna ask some questions and sort of bring in how this can be helpful to more people, and even if you're not experiencing cancer, right? And we're gonna talk more about that. So I want to thank you for being here with us, Jan and Janet, and stay tuned, because part 2 will be on the way.
terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.